There's a part of you that you know is there, but you've never really seen it. It's this hidden world inside you that pretty much dictates why you act, feel, and live the way you do. Today, we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to give you the tools to finally understand it, and maybe even take the wheel.
So let me ask you, ever have one of those days where you feel like you're just on autopilot? Maybe you snap at someone you love and have no idea why, or you find yourself slipping back into the same old habit you swore you'd break. Who's actually making those calls? If you've ever felt that disconnect, you're about to find out exactly what's going on. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll pull back the curtain on that autopilot running your life. Then, we'll get clear on the two different minds you have inside you. We're going to find the source code that programs your reactions, lay out a real path to making changes, and finally get to the heart of who you really are. So let's start with that feeling of being driven by something you can't quite name. This isn't just in your head. It's a real, powerful, hidden force that was programmed into you a long, long time ago. I mean, think about it. A huge chunk of your day, from the way you brush your teeth to your gut reaction in traffic, is run by this inner autopilot. It's a program that's always working silently in the background, executing commands just to save you energy. It's designed to be efficient, right? But here's the thing. What happens when that program is totally outdated? Okay, to really get a handle on this autopilot, we've got to meet the two minds that are responsible for it. And this isn't just some psychology jargon. This is the core operating system of your entire life. So on one hand, you've got your conscious mind. That's you right now, paying attention, analyzing what I'm saying, setting goals. It's super creative and smart, but it's also kind of slow and gets tired pretty easily. But then there's the unconscious. Think of it as a massive, lightning-fast supercomputer that holds a record of everything you've ever experienced. And its only job? To keep you safe by running automated programs based on all that past data. Okay, now I want you to really let this slide sink in. We all love to think our conscious mind is the CEO, calling all the shots. But just look at these numbers. See that tiny 5% slice? That's your conscious mind. The other 95% of your day, your behaviors, your emotional reactions, your habits, that's all run by the unconscious. This is why willpower alone usually doesn't work. You're literally trying to fight a supercomputer with a pocket calculator. Here's a really great way to picture how this works in your day-to-day life. Just imagine your unconscious mind is like an old cassette player. Every single experience, every belief you formed, every strong emotion you felt, especially as a kid, it all got recorded onto a tape. Now, when a new situation pops up that feels even a little bit similar to an old one, your unconscious doesn't think, it doesn't reason. It just hits play on that old familiar tape. So if your unconscious is a cassette player, then who recorded all those tapes? And what exactly is on them? Well, that's what we're about to dive into. We're going to look at how your personal history literally became your present-day reality. Let's switch to another analogy here, because this one is really, really powerful. Picture your entire personality, not as this fixed thing, but as a super complex computer program. You aren't the computer itself, the physical body. You are the software that's running on it. And this is where it all comes from. Every single line of that code was written by your life. That belief that you aren't quite smart enough, that's a line of code probably written by a bad grade or a critical comment years ago. That habit of avoiding conflict at all costs, well, that's code that was written to help you survive a tense environment when you were younger. The most important thing to realize here is that these aren't character flaws. They were survival strategies that got hard-coded into your system. And here's the key to understanding your life right now. Your old code is constantly running and interpreting your current reality. This is exactly why a simple question from your partner can trigger a huge defensive reaction. Your unconscious isn't really seeing your partner in that moment. It's reading an old line of code about being criticized, and it just plays the reaction tape. Just knowing this is a huge step toward having compassion for yourself, and it's the first step toward real change. Okay, so you might be thinking, great, I'm just running on old code. But hold on, because this is actually the most empowering news you could possibly get. Why? Because if code was written, it can also be rewritten. So let's get to the practical part. How you can become the programmer of your own mind. This is where the work begins, and I promise, it's simpler than you think. Change doesn't start with some huge dramatic effort. It starts with one small conscious action. Every time you follow through on a tiny promise to yourself, like drinking a glass of water or taking a 5-minute walk, you are sending a powerful message to your unconscious. You're saying, hey, there's a new programmer in charge now. You're laying a new foundation for yourself, one brick at a time. So here are 3 things you can start doing right away. First, awareness. Just start noticing your autopilot without any judgment. Like, oh, interesting, there's that urge to check my phone again. The source material actually says that this simple act of noticing is 70% of the work. Second, affirmations. And this isn't just wishful thinking. These are literally new lines of code. When you state a new belief in the present tense, like I am capable and resourceful, and you actually feel the positive emotion of it, you start installing new software. And third, the alpha state. You know that dreamy, relaxed period just as you're falling asleep or waking up? That's when your analytical mind is offline and the door to your unconscious is wide open. It is the absolute best time to mentally repeat your new affirmations and install them directly into your core programming. And here's a super practical tip for your everyday decisions. Look, your conscious mind can talk itself into or out of anything, but your body never lies. When you're facing a choice, just pause for a second and tune in. Does one option feel heavy or tight in your body? And does the other one feel light, expansive, almost like a sense of relief? That feeling of lightness, that's your intuition. That's your newly aligned unconscious giving you a direct signal. You gotta learn to trust it.
Now, as you start using these tools, something really fundamental begins to shift. You stop being a passenger who's just getting tossed around by old programming, and you start to become the pilot, intentionally choosing where you want to go.
So who are you in the middle of all this? Well, you are not your anxious thoughts. You are the one who can notice the thoughts. You are not your feelings of frustration. Those are just like weather patterns passing through. You aren't even your programmed reactions. You are the consciousness behind it all, the silent observer who is now aware of the program. And because you're aware, you're now capable of choosing a different response.
The author from our source material did this wild experiment. For 1 week, she intentionally made what her mind told her were the wrong choices. And the biggest lesson she learned was this: the only real mistake is being indecisive. When you refuse to choose, you're just handing the controls over to your old programming, to other people, or just to random circumstances. That is the real source of regret. Making a choice, any choice, is what keeps you in the pilot's seat.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. What if this whole experience, all the struggles, the patterns, the challenges, what if it's all a kind of game? It's a very convincing one for sure, but a game nonetheless. And what if all this time you just haven't realized that the controller has been sitting right there in your hands? What would you do differently starting right now if you finally decided to pick it up and play?